I'm really not comfortable with this hat being back on my head. So I keep like interrupting myself because I'm like, is it still on? I bobby pinned it and put 2 hat pins in this hat, and I'm still like, is it still on? I'm just not used to wearing hats that far back on my head. Hey there, Fiber Junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and host of this podcast. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for joining me, and if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It has been a long time since we did a video on what I'm working on, so that's what we're going to do today. As many of you guys know if you've been around for a while, if you don't know, here's the scoop. I had my first baby last October, and it is now January. Actually, nope, it's now February. One of those months. So ever since baby Potion was born at the end of October last year, I have taken a little bit more of an easygoing approach toward the podcast. I took some time off when he was first born and did not release any new videos for a while. And then when I did, I was just keeping up with our Saturday night at the movies for a while. And those are always fun for me, but I really wanted to do something on what I'm knitting. Now the good news is, even though I haven't had time to release a video for a while on what I've been knitting, you really haven't missed much because I haven't been knitting very much. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I've been working on. The first thing that I was going to talk about, I don't have to show you because I haven't really made any progress on it since the last time I showed you. I mean, technically I made progress on it, but it was like 1 or 2 rounds, so it's not really worth showing. But last September I cast on a brand new Fair Isle sweater stranded knit. It was either September or early October, but I had been wanting to do a steeked project for a long time because I've done one before and I loved it, and I'd been wanting to do one for a while, but I kept getting distracted with other projects and putting it off, and I finally spent days looking at patterns online, found a pattern, purchased it on a designer's website, and got some Knit Picks yarn, cast on a beautiful pullover. So it's not going to be a cardigan this time, which was my last steeked project. It's just going to be a pullover, but you do steek for like armhole openings and stuff. So I can't wait to do that. And I was working on it, making pretty good progress on this really complicated pattern with like 15 or 17 colors, something like that. And when I went into labor, that was actually the project that I started working on. Well, I'd already started working on it, but I was knitting on that project while I was in labor. My plan was to knit as far as I could into labor, and I was anticipating not ever having gone through it before. I was thinking, I mean, I hear a lot about like early labor lasting for a long time, so I think I can probably do quite a bit of knitting during early labor. And I guess if you count times where I had labor that started and stopped a bunch for the first 24 hours, so if you count all the times that I was trying to like go on walks around the neighborhood and walk up and down the stairs in my house to try and get things moving, and every so often I would take a little break and sit down and knit a couple rows. If you count that, then I guess I did knit on it more than just 2 rounds, but I'm pretty sure I only got about 2 rounds done in actual labor before I was like, I cannot focus on this very complicated pattern with all these color work charts and like 15 balls of yarn hanging off of it and all of this stuff. So I ended up putting it away and didn't knit again for the rest of my labor, and then I actually didn't knit again for like 2 weeks or something, and then when I did, it was like a row on something small. So I didn't get a lot of knitting in the first few days of baby Potion's life, or the first few weeks really. So I'm only just getting back into knitting recently, but I wanted to show you what I've done. First, I have a finished object to show you, and I'm very excited about it. I need to block the collar. I still haven't done that, but I started and finished this after baby Potion was born. This is the Monsoon sweater. It is a pullover knit in the round, and you just start at the top, put the sleeves on hold after you do some raglan shaping for a bit, and then finish the body, then go back and pick up the sleeves that are on hold and finish those. This was a brand new pattern back in December. It came out, I think, mid-December, like around the 15th or so. This came out, and I believe you can purchase it on Ravelry, or you can contact the designer. It is No Law Knits, Raylene Finch. I have actually test knit for her before, and so she asked me if I would be a test knitter for this pattern. I did warn her when she contacted me. Baby Potion was less than 2 weeks old, so I did warn her that I had just had my first baby and I had no idea how the recovery was going to go, so couldn't guarantee that I would finish it in time, but if she wanted me to still try, I'd be happy to do that. But I didn't think I was going to make the deadline that she had set just because of having a new baby. And she was super gracious about it and really sweet and was like, yes, I would still like you to do the test knit, but you don't have to finish on time. My yarn is one of the yarns, it wasn't what she originally knit hers in, but it is one of the suggested yarns that she has for her pattern. So the yarn that I'm using for my shop is my Seductress Sock, which is a sparkle sock blend. It is a superwash merino, nylon and stellina blend, so it gives it that beautiful like shimmery sparkle. I hope you can see that in the light okay. It kind of looks like stars in the night sky on this dark background because I have the silver stellina against this colorway is called Sorceress, which is a dark sapphire kind of teal and navy blue, midnight blue kind of tonal. So I would definitely recommend using a tonal yarn for this because the stitch work on the sleeves and on the cuff of the hem of the sweater and the cuffs is pretty intricate. Basically on the body you're just doing stockinette on the front and back, reverse stockinette on the sleeves, so pretty simple stitches there. However, you do have this beautiful panel of traveling cable stitches, or not cable stitches, but like traveling stitches on a twisted rib background that goes down each of the sleeves, so it goes up along the top of your arm, and then the hem also has twisted ribbing with some intricate patterning with like really cool fanning out designs of the stitches. So I wanted to pick something that was a color I would actually wear, but was kind of, I really wanted to show off this new colorway that I just created this last fall. So that's why I did it in the Sorceress, but I wanted something that would still show off the intricate stitches that I had. I was really worried this was going to be too dark, so I worked a swatch of it and was like, it's borderline a little dark, but you can definitely see it, and I think the color is pretty enough that it's worth it, so I went ahead and went with that. And I believe Raylene made hers in kind of a slightly lighter blue than this, but still kind of a deep blue sort of tonal as well. And then I think one of the other test knitters did like a really pretty red, which was one of the other colors I was considering, but I decided I would wear the blue more, and I wanted to have a shop sample that showed off this gorgeous Sorceress color. So that is my finished object, and I'm not going to say never, I have not taken that long to knit a sweater in a while, but that I had a lot on my plate. And the reason it felt like it took forever was not only did it take a couple of months, but it was the only thing I knit on. As soon as I cast it on, I didn't knit anything else. I was knitting several things before, and I have knit several other things since, but when I was working on the sweater, the only thing I worked on was this sweater, monogamously. And if you've watched the podcast for a while, you know I'm not a monogamous knitter, so that's kind of amazing for me. But yeah, I'm really happy to have it done. What I love about this pattern, besides the awesome, cool traveling stitches, is I am obsessed with these sleeves. They are so pretty. They're really kind of like bell-shaped almost, because they don't, when you pick up your stitches that you've been working from the top and you knit them down to the cuff, you don't do any decreases. In fact, you even increase a little bit on the charts. So that it has like this nice full sleeve effect, and then you very quickly decrease at the cuff to do the ribbing, so that it creates kind of this like bell shape like that. And I love that shape. It's very vintagey. So this wasn't specifically a vintage design. It wasn't intended to look like it came out of the 40s or 50s or anything like that. But because of little details like that, it does have a slightly vintage feel, at least to me. The other thing that feels vintage about it is it's a pretty short body. It's meant to be kind of hitting right at your natural waistline or just a little below. And so it's not so short that it's going to make it awkward or uncomfortable to wear with modern day skirts and pants, but I definitely find that it's a little bit shorter than most modern day sweaters, which again, for someone like me who's short anyways and vintage style freak and has a lot of like really high-waisted skirts and pants, I think this is going to be really, really fabulous. And I think if I can put it on with really vintagey styled hair and accessories, it's going to have more of a vintage vibe to it, kind of more like 30s, 40s than a modern sweater. But if you're not into the vintage vibe, I still think you would like it because it's a really cool, like simple pullover with just really intricate detail work, which is really, really fun. I highly recommend the pattern. I will put a link to it below so that you can find it. My next project is also a finished object, kind of. It's not technically finished, but it's so close it's ridiculous. I knit a hat out of some more of my yarn, and the only thing I have left to do, the hat is all finished, the only thing I have left to do is I just was knitting an I-cord. I need to weave the ends in, but I knit an I-cord and then tied it into a bow, and then I'm going to take that bow and I am going to sew it to the little notched opening on the hat, so it'll be right on the brim of the hat. And I have a very intricate hairstyle, and my hat is actually hat pinned into my hair to keep it on my head today, so I'm not going to be able to show you what this looks like on, but I will wear it on another podcast in the near future and post some photos on my Instagram and stuff, because it is really, really cute on. And the thing I love about this style is you can wear it pulled down a little bit lower over your forehead, and it takes on this very 1920s flapper cloche look. Or you can push it back slightly and wear it like just a slouchy beanie, like a more modern day style. It looks phenomenal both ways. I love wearing it both ways, so I know I'm gonna get a ton of wear out of this hat. So this hat is called the Feather Pattern, and it comes from a book called Fairy Knitting. It's a really cool book that's basically a collaboration between two gals. I think they're sister-in-laws or something like that, or sisters-in-law, something along those lines. But one of them is an author and one is a knitwear designer, so she designed patterns, and her friend or sister or whoever wrote these original fairy tale type stories to go with the patterns. So they have the feeling of the old Grimm's fairy tales, but they're new, modern, well, not modern, they're meant to be an old fairy tale, like set in a different time and probably different world too, but they have the feeling of a Grimm's fairy tale while being completely new, ones that you've never heard before. But they're all meant to go with the patterns. And I'm sorry, it's been a while since I read them, so I do not remember what the story is that goes with this hat, but you should go buy the book or get it from your local library and read the story yourself, because they're pretty clever and fun, and there's a whole bunch of different patterns, everything from little bags and like sachets you can put in your linen drawer to sweaters, vests, socks, gloves, hats, shawls, everything. So it's a pretty cool book. But this was my favorite pattern in the book. I also talked about this on the podcast before because I knit Baby Potion, the baby blanket that's in the very back, the thorn blanket. I think it's the very last pattern in the book. I knit that while I was pregnant, and I finished it literally like days before he was born. So it was kind of perfect, and it's been a really great blanket for us. But I was excited to do this hat with my yarn because it only takes one skein of DK weight yarn, and actually the pattern that is in the book calls for a sport weight yarn, but I did mine in DK and changed the needle size. I believe it calls for a size 4 and 6 needle, and I used a 5 and a 7 and the DK, but I knit the smallest size because she has 2 sizes listed. It's either 2 or 3, but she's got 2 sizes listed, and so I went with the smaller size, which is originally more of like a large child, small woman size, and I am a small woman anyways, but I went with that since I went up a needle size and I made like a DK weight hat instead of sport weight. So I adjusted that slightly because I wanted to use my DK yarn from my shop. This is my Mad Hatter yarn. Get a little closer so you can see this. This is from the new Alice in Wonderland collection that I did. It's a stunning explosion of color, as you can see. It's a rainbow skein, which can be really intimidating, which is why I wanted to knit a pattern to show you guys how it knits up. Now keep in mind this will change based on your gauge and the size that you make and the stitch pattern. I used a twisted rib on the ribbing, and then the pattern uses a feather and fan type of stitch. I'm not going to tell you exactly how you do it because you need to buy the pattern to figure that out, but it creates this kind of undulating wave similar to the old feather and fan or old Shawl patterns that you can find in pretty much any stitch dictionary. It's a similar kind of a one, and I really love how it came out. This was designed for variegated yarn. That's what she uses in the book as well, and so it's perfect for this skein of just crazy, wonderful, magical rainbow that I created. And I love this colorway. It's been selling out of the shop every time I put it up there, and you can now order it dyed to order on your choice of base yarn. So head to my shop. There's a link below to my online store where you can find dyed to order listings for all of my Alice in Wonderland colors, including this one, which is called Mad Hatter. So Mad Hatter Made an Amazing Hat, and you should go check this out. I will put a link to that book as well in the description box so you can find it, purchase it, or you can check it out at your local library. I cast on a new shawl. Surprise, surprise. I'm kind of the queen of shawls. I love shawls. I really do. They're just easy. They're fun. They're like great gifts because you don't have to know the size of the recipient. They're fun to wear. They're fun to style, and they show off indie dyed yarns so well. And there's so many beautiful shawl patterns these days on the market. They've really become kind of my go-to. I'm still a sweater knitter at heart. That's what I really, really love doing, but I've definitely become even more of a shawl person lately. And while I was pregnant, I wasn't doing very many sweaters at all. I think I did one, the Honey Bop sweater, but I didn't really want to do sweaters while I was pregnant because I didn't know what size I would be after having the baby, and I didn't know how I'd want things to fit and all of that. So I have been knitting a lot of shawls lately, and I decided to cast on a new one. It is called the Marrakesh shawl. I will put that title and the designer in the description box so you can find it. But it's really a simple garter stitch shawl with lace panels. That's it. I love those kinds of things. And I am obsessed with stripe patterns. They are so much fun. So I loved the stripes in this thing as well. The original was knit in blue and white with kind of a gold amber color for the lace panel, and I was originally going to try to stick to those colors because I loved the way they looked in the original. And so I'd been hoarding this pattern for years and planning to knit it with something along those lines, and I was actually picking yarns out of my hand-dyed yarn stash of my own yarn to knit in those colors, and I had all the colors I needed. And then I went stash diving in yarn I've been hoarding, mine as well as other people's, and I found the perfect trio of colors, and I decided I liked these colors a little bit better, so I wanted to try them. So the first color, my color A, or my main color, is one of my hand-dyed yarns. It's called Tattered Lace, and this was from the original batch that I created when I was first making up the formula, and I hoarded it because I thought it was such a pretty color and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And this is on my Dragonfly BFL, so it's 75% superwash BFL and 25% nylon. It's a great sock yarn. And so I do still carry this colorway in my shop on other bases like Banshee and the Coquette single ply and stuff. I found the perfect companion for it in this skein of superwash merino and nylon that I purchased from Vocabulary Yarns, and I will put their shop below as well. This one is called All Souls Day, and it's this really weird color. I don't know how to describe it. It's like green meets gray meets brown, all in one skein. In this light it's looking a little more green, but when I picked it out it was looking more brown, but it's kind of like brown, green, and gray all mixed together. It's very, very odd, but in a really cool way. And when I purchased it, I knew it was going to look stunning as like a contrast color with a lighter or brighter yarn. So I've been hoarding it since last November, so over a year now I've been hoarding this yarn, trying to figure out the perfect pattern. And then I put these two together and was like, oh, fell in love. It's like neutral heaven over here. And then just because I can't do all neutrals and it needed something really poppy for that lace, I'm also using a skein of Madeline Tosh sock that I'd hoarded for a long time as well. I actually bought this in a D-stash from another knitter. And this, I believe, is called Tart, is the colorway. It's this really rich, like blood red crimson color. So it is the perfect complement to my neutrals. So I have done the first lace panel. Now I have a big section of stripes, just garter stitch stripes that I'm going to create before there's an extra large lace panel at the very end, and that's it. It is a crescent shape, so you start at the top with a garter tab and then you just increase on the edges so it goes out into this really nice crescent, which is my favorite shape of shawl to wear as well as to knit. So that is what has been consuming my time. I really wanted to pick a garter stitch shawl because, firstly of all, I love the way garter stitch shows off indie dyed yarn, speckled yarns, variegated yarns, and even like tonals and semi-solids. But I really love how it looks on speckles and variegated, and I knew I wanted to use that tattered lace, which is a speckly yarn. It's kind of variegated and speckled, and so I wanted something that would show off the color, but I also love garter stitch shawls because they're so stinking easy. It's like you're relaxing knitting. It's great for card knitting, watching TV, relaxing on the sofa, or when your brain hurts and you're tired, which is me every single day now. So I really, really like that it was easy and simple, but really fun and just beautiful colors, and I thought it would be something like kind of relaxing and fun to work on. I do also have a pair of vanilla socks that I'm working on. I'm going to show you super briefly. I do not have a pattern for these because I am just knitting them toe up, and they're vanilla socks, so they're just stockinette in the round. I'm not sure what heel I'm going to use yet. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do Fish Lips Kiss, which I've done several times before, but I'm not sure, and I'm just using self-striping yarn from Knit Picks. I do not recall the color, and I lost the ball band, so I'm so sorry about that, but it's like a light pink, kind of a silvery gray, almost white, and then a deeper charcoal gray, and it is available on their website, so if you go check out Knit Picks and look under their sock yarns, their self-striping sock yarn, you should be able to find this color, but I just bought 2 balls of it, so I'm doing 2 at a time socks, and I'm using a method where you do 2 circular needles. So I've got a really short needle and then a slightly longer needle, and so you knit across one sock and then knit across the other with the second ball of yarn, then you turn the whole thing and knit back across that way, pick up the other ball of yarn and knit that way. Sounds very complex and confusing. It's not really. There's a ton of videos out there on how to do it on YouTube. I also have a cast on for toe up 2 at a time socks. I believe in that video I'm using magic loop, but it pretty much works the same for this type of thing as well. You can make it work for however you choose to knit socks, even if it's double pointed needles, but I'm specifically doing it for circular needles, doing 2 at a time, toe up socks. So you should check that video out because it is quite helpful. It's just a little tutorial. But these were on the needles like long before Baby Potion was born. I think last summer or last spring I cast them on, and then I put them down for months and months and months, and I just picked them back up recently, but they're very slow going because I've mostly been working on my shawl and that Mad Hatter hat that I just created. I only took a couple of days to knit that one, but I put everything else aside to work on that and then start my shawl. So that's really all I've had time to work on. I haven't made any progress on the stranded sweater I mentioned at the beginning of this video, so I'm not going to show that yet. And I think that's about all I even have on the needles at the moment, other than some really old projects that we're pretending don't exist in a closet somewhere. But we'll get to those eventually. I hope you are having as much fun with your knitting as I've been having. I hope you're getting a lot more time than I have been to knit, but whatever your situation and whatever you're knitting, I hope it's enjoyable and fun. That's what knitting is all about, right? It is now time to cast off. Love you.